Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jay Nichols and Chrissy West at Child Care Aware of America. We're just going to give folks just another minute or two, and then we will begin. So back shortly. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Jay Nichols and Chrissy West from Child Care Aware of America. We're going to get started. Want to thank all of you for taking time to listen in. I know that the last couple of weeks have been very busy, but also very exciting. And I imagine that many of you on the phone or those that are listening in today probably have questions as to the next steps especially for the Child Care and Block Grant as it relates to the big congressional budget deal that was struck a couple weeks ago, last week. So we're just going to use this opportunity to just kind of walk you through what the deal includes and really what does it mean down the road. So again, want to welcome all of you here. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box, and Chrissy and I will do the best we can to answer them. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube page by the end of the day today. And yes, we will, as always, we will make the slides available on our website shortly afterwards. So let's jump right to it. So, last week was a big week, even though there was a very, very brief government shutdown, unfortunately. But you probably all have heard that congressional leadership in the White House, with regards to the current continuing resolution that the government is being funded under, struck a deal to provide nearly $300 billion over the next, in new money over the next 2 years. That's fiscal year, that's this year, fiscal year 2018, and then of course fiscal year 2019, which technically begins on October 1st of this year. Now, in the total sum of the $300 billion, $131 billion is for non-defense programs, and roughly $50 billion of that is specifically for kids, for the early childhood and K through 12 system, as well as kids' health programs and nutrition programs and other critical programs for children from birth to 18. So, of that, President Trump signed the deal last week. Of that $50 billion, $5.8 billion is specifically set aside for CCDBG. So, big increase. It is going to actually, as I will explain in a moment, the money technically has not been appropriated yet. It's been promised Congress still has to complete the budget, which they're working on right now. And so just want to use this opportunity to kind of walk you through what it means and how the money is going to be allocated. So as I mentioned, Congress has till March 23rd to get the fiscal year 2018 budget completed. That's a current continuing resolution. Based on this deal, the bipartisan deal, it should be completed by then, might be completed a little sooner. Congress is out. They are out on recess next week, but we know that congressional staff are in the process of writing what's called an omnibus appropriations bill, which the text should be probably be available sometime early next month. So how will the money be allocated over the next 2 years? It's simple. Of the $5.8 billion increase, half will be allocated this year and the other half in fiscal year 2019. So, roughly, including the current allocation of CCDBG monies, is basically $5.8 billion this year and next year. The agreement does not include any changes to how the formula and allocation in each state works, and it does not include any language directing states to focus on a specific task or anything related to the next preprint, which is coming out in March, the next 3-year CCDF preprint. It's basically, as far as we know, and we think it's going to it's going to remain this way. It is basically just an injection of new money to carry out and giving states kind of the option of prioritizing how they want to invest in quality care and prioritize care for low-income families. So new money, but no new requirements. To give all of you an idea of what this new money means, probably one of the biggest as far as like access to care, and this is from the Center for Law and Social Policy class, up to about 230,000 children will gain access over the next couple of years due to this significant increase. That also means not only access to quality care, but also states now have more resources because, as everyone on the phone is aware, the 2014 law, while we and a number of other child-related organizations pushed hard for its reauthorization and supported it, obviously, it was the program itself was drastically underfunded, so this will help. It really, because before this, a lot of states had to really tighten their belts, and other and we're limited on what they could do. And I know there's a number of folks that had some difficulty meeting some of the bigger mandates due to lack of funding. So this will certainly help. And the message from Congress, especially from congressional leadership, particularly on the Democratic side, they are really highlighting this as a down payment for the Child Care for Working Families Act, the legislation sponsored by Patty Murray in the Senate and Congressman Bobby Scott of Virginia, that was introduced last September. And by a down payment, as a reminder, everybody, of the number of things the Child Care for Working Families Act would authorize and provide, including access to more care, training, credentialing, educational support. It would basically turn child care into a full entitlement and pump over $100 billion in new money through the mandatory funding stream, which is the same stream that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are currently funded at. So this is a good down payment for this critical legislation. And as a reminder, this is, of course, the Patty Murray, Bobby Scott bill. We will be at our this year's symposium, our Day in the Hill. We will be urging lawmakers to sign on and support. Now, in a moment, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Chrissy West, who is going to kind of walk you through like what can we do as members and advocates, and now that we have this this new funding. But before I do, there's just a couple more things I would like to highlight because I know that I've received various questions. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have an agreement. We have an awesome agreement for $5.8 billion in new money, but the money is not available just yet. The first half of it, hopefully between now and a month from now, assuming the budget's done, that we get half now, and then the fiscal year 2019 budget, which if I could give you my best guess, probably would be completed or just before the holidays in December. That will be the second half of that money, and then after fiscal year 2019. If those wondering what does that mean after this 2-year budget deal, well, it sets a precedent and a very, very good one, because now that they've raised the caps significantly for more child care funding, it is going to be difficult for them to lower it, and there may be more incentive to raise it, hopefully to raise it even further to support this program. Like I said, this is a first step, but a very, very positive step, and hopefully it will. We can continue to build support to get even more federal investment for CCDBG. One of the things I would say, as the money is as they are working on the final spending bill, for those of you on the phone that work with your state governor's office or with the local child care resource referral network, while the budget is being finalized, we encourage you, all of you, to begin the planning now. I know that many of you are probably involved with your 3-year preprint or getting ready for the preprint, which is coming out, which is ACF is supposed to release next month. But we would encourage you to go ahead, the states to go ahead and thinking about how with this new money, what like best practices or what priorities do your states have to help ensure that more kids gain access to quality care. And once again, as of right now, and we expect it to remain this way. It is just we don't anticipate any legislative language in the final appropriations bill. It's pretty much they're given discretion to the states on how to allocate this funding. And the one last thing that I would want to highlight before I turn it over to Chrissy is I think many of you are aware that President Trump released his budget earlier this week. A couple of things. One is that budget request most of it was likely written and submitted to the Office of Management and Budget probably 3 or 4 months ago. And it doesn't, the budget really does not reflect the deal, because not only for child care funding, there's also, of the $300 billion, more money for Department of Defense, money for an infrastructure bill, money to combat the opioid crisis, other funds for other discretionary programs. And the budget did not reflect that deal, because presidential budgets are usually written written in advance. So all I'm going to say is, while I am happy to answer any questions about the budget, I really wouldn't pay any attention to it. We've been told by congressional staff on both sides of the political aisle that they're going to take the lead on writing the budget for fiscal year 2019. But it will be very important for us to, while they work on it, not only for this year but also for next year, that they maintain their promise to fully fund child care. And so now it's in writing. They've all agreed to it. The president signed it. So we must, in the coming months, between roughly now and the end of 2018, need to make sure we really push our members to keep that promise. I would just say that as far as like this budget request, presidential budget requests are not law. They're usually a statement of principles, and they usually are the first step in a year-long budget process. But if you have any specific questions on the budget, I'd be more than happy to answer them. So with that, I would like to hand it over to our Director of Advocacy, Chrissy West, who is going to spend a moment to kind of lay out and kind of brainstorm with all of you how we can take advantage of this great news. Chrissy?
Thank you so much, Jay. So we think that where our best opportunity to influence how this funding is used is going to be obviously at the state level. So because it's a block grant, states actually decide where this money is going to go. So our plan right now is to target governors for messaging campaigns from constituents. We also might pull in some beds if we can get some influencers involved in the campaign once the budget is finally passed, just so we know for sure that the money is coming through. And we're going to ask them to prioritize the funding. And here's where we kind of thought we could open it up to discussion or thoughts if you had any questions. If we wanted to ask governors to put money aside for quality set aside, if we needed more money in subsidy programs at the state level, expansion of programs, if you had any other thoughts. So that's something that we'll be kind of fleshing out in time before the budget actually comes out so that we're ready to hit the ground running. And this, this could essentially be different for every single state if it needs to be. I know the landscape is very different from state to state, so this could be something that maybe we kind of individualize based on the state, and we have different priorities for these funds once they come through. Until the budget is passed, we are actually pushing for the Child Care for Working Families Act. And what we're doing is in support with the child care coalitions that we work with, we are doing an in-person petition delivery of signatures in support of the Child Care for Working Families Act. So what we were hoping to do is to have members on this call, and we can follow up with you individually as well after this, and just take action on the petition and to share it to your networks, to your social media channels, to your email list. We want these petition signature lists to be as huge as possible because we're going to combine them with the signatories from National Women's Law Center, Moms Rising, other coalition groups, and then we're going to do in-person petition deliveries in DC to our legislators. So that's going to be an effort through the coalition, and we're looking at this current budget allocation for the next 2 years as sort of a down payment on this because the Child Care for Working Families Act is obviously huge and enormous and could really mean a lot for that. So if you have any thoughts or preferences or just want to take some time to think about where you think that the dollars should go in your state, we would love any feedback. And actually, you can get in touch with Jay or myself if you're not comfortable sharing here or if you need to marinate on it a little bit. If you have any questions on the budget or the policy process there, or if you have any thoughts on where your dollars should go in your state, we are more than willing and very excited to kind of engage with you guys and to see where you guys are on this at the state level. So if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box or reach out to us via email. And you should see our emails up on the screen right now.
Thank you, Chrissy. And yes, please, if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box that you should be located, that should be viewable on you should be able to view on your screen. I will add, once again, the significance of this massive increase in funds. It's been something that we've all been pushing for years. As I mentioned earlier in the call, it's now that it's been done, it's kind of difficult, even after this 2-year deal, it will be politically difficult for members of Congress to kind of bring the level down. So we appear to have, we are in really good shape, I think, long term. And again, just want to thank all of you for all of your work, and we look forward to continue working as we push this down. So we do have a few questions that have popped up. The first one, with regards to on focusing on governors, this actually looks like it's a suggestion, not a question. So it would be helpful to include in strategies when a state is having an election for the governor and how to strategize sitting governors as well as prospective ones. Thank you very much for that comment. And then we have another one from the state of Washington, where they tell us that they are happy to support the Child Care for Working Families Act, and we always appreciate Child Care Aware of Washington and all the great work you do. And the question is there anything else we need to address in the CCDF rewrite? So The only thing, the Office of Child Care a couple months ago did actually do a round of comments, and we did, and Child Care Work America did provide comments. They were actually specifically seeking comments on delaying the mandatory background check that states had to comply with, since a number of them, a number of states sought waivers. That was pretty much it. They didn't really seek for specific comments on anything else, although we did provide suggestions on consumer education and other key pieces based off of the 2014 law and our last comments that we provided on the last 3-year CCDF 3-year plan. So I don't think they're going to change anything. They may decide to delay, grant another 1-year waiver or so on background checks for states that request it.
And just as a note for Steve and his comment on governors and elections, I think that that's a great idea, and we actually are in a few states going to be prioritizing some electoral work, specifically with our child care work priority states as well. So this could be something that we wrap into that. If your state is interested, definitely reach out to me. You guys should all have my email now, but I would love to talk to you about if we wrap this into an electoral campaign as well, and maybe do some education to candidates for governor if you have someone running this year, especially if it's someone new who maybe hasn't touched this issue at all. That would be really great. We want whoever comes into office to make sure that they're well versed in this issue, and hopefully that they see us as R&Rs in the communities as a resource for information on these issues. So I definitely appreciate that. And Steve, if you want to talk about some electoral work in Maryland, definitely let me know.
Okay.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Steve. Well, I think those are the only questions that we've had. Once again, Chrissy and I are available if anyone on the phone has any. And again, this webinar is being recorded. We will make it available on our website soon. And I just want to, thank all of you again for joining. Looking forward to seeing many of you in a couple months here in DC, and looking forward, to moving forward on getting this money, getting this critical funding out. So, wish all of you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much.